We are sitting here. So, Chris, tell us, you're absolute legend within the computer industry of music. So, why did you start doing music?
Wow. Yeah, thanks. To this day, I can't believe what happened, you know, with my career and everything. The truth is, I had an interest in electronic music from an early age, but my family couldn't afford like to buy synthesizers. All you know, they came up in the 70s and then in the 80s, and they were very expensive machines. And I wanted to make music like Kraftwerk and Jean-Michel Jarre and Vangelis and all those big names that made synthesizer music back then. And yeah, so then one day I also became interested in video games, and I also started programming a little bit on an office computer that uncle of mine had, and he was programming some applications. So I got a little bit into computers and programming, and then I saw an ad in the magazine about the Commodore 64 and how it had a real synthesizer sound chip, you know, the SID. And I was looking through the specs, and I looked up other advertisements, and I was really glued to it, and I thought like, wow, you know, if I could score a Commodore 64, which was, you know, within financial reach, then I could make electronic music with that. And that was essentially the plan for that.
Okay, that's interesting.
Eventually, yeah, yep. My Skype just rang here. I need to turn that off.
No worries, no worries.
Oh, it's so annoying.
Could you tell us, you're still into making music on these old computers. Could you tell us why? Do you still keep in contact with the scene and the demo scene and stuff? We see you at different events, but what's your passion nowadays?
Actually, it started like, was it 3 years ago that I was at Data Storm in Sweden, and that was my very first demo party. You know, so I didn't have much contact with the scene, because when I you know, got a little bit of success with those first works that I did for the magazine, I immediately started working for a games company over in Germany, and you know, games company, commercial on one hand, and then the scene on the other hand, that didn't quite mesh. So, in the beginning, at least. Okay. And so I never got really much into the scene. So I started working, and I did a lot of music for those games, and they ended up then in scene productions, you know. And then really my first big demo party was the Data Storm in, was that 2018 or
17, I believe. Yeah, it was there as well. So yeah.
Yeah. But over the years, of course, I had contact with the scene, and then just recently I did I did actually 2 C64 music pieces. One I did for the I had this bonus album for one of the Kickstarters that I did, which was orchestral versions of Turrican music, was recorded with a real orchestra. And one of the perks there was like, I wanted to create a bonus CD or album that was completely done with Amiga music, how it would have been done in 1994. So if there would have been a Turrican 4. So I did like a whole album with my old tools on the Amiga. And then one of the bonus pieces on that album was to convert one of those Amiga pieces back to the C64. And I did that actually with my old sound tool, the TFMX editor on the C64. And that was quite interesting.
That's cool. We see you quite a lot with music on Spotify, for example. Is this those new platforms? must get quite a lot of attention there, right? Doing this old school stuff. Do you meet new audience as well, or is it just old gamers?
I think it's mostly the fans from back then. Every now and then I have somebody new, but that's probably more something I do on Patreon, which is another project I do. But from early on, I was very smart to ask every company I worked for if I could keep the rights outside of the game for the music. Which is a little bit more tricky now that I'm in the US. If I work with US companies, they usually want to own everything. Yeah. That's like a full buyout, full work for hire agreement usually. And they don't even, in theory, they don't even need to credit you, you know, if it's under US law. But in Germany, you cannot even like sell all those rights. You can only assign usage rights. And so since I'm working mostly with European companies, I almost always had the luck that they agreed for me to keep the rights outside of the game. So they could use it exclusively for the game for as long as they want. And then I could put it out on a soundtrack album later. Yeah. And I've done that, and I have now over 45 albums that are, you know, most of them are on Spotify, as you mentioned. I started with iTunes very early. I had actually my own music label for a while there, Synsonic Records in Germany, that I founded with a friend. It's now shut down, but I still have those connections, and that enabled me to get into the iTunes store in like, was it 2001 or 2002, very early, where they were not even like allowing independent artists to get on their platform. But because I had our own label there, it looked more legitimate, and I got on there, and I was really lucky about that. And nowadays, for that side, Spotify is definitely the biggest income stream. And I know that like a lot of people are, you know, unhappy. A lot of artists, big artists, are unhappy with Spotify. But I think it has to do mostly with their contracts, because they have a record label in between, and they take most of the money. So then the artist doesn't see much of it. But because I administer my music myself, I actually get a nice payout there. And it's been I earned probably more with Spotify now than I earned with my regular album releases. So I'm quite happy about it.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's cool. Well, what is your next music tune? Are you working on something right now?
Yeah, I'm working on a game called Tiny Thor right now. That's coming out hopefully late this year. That is one. That's an indie project, but it's a little bit nicer, larger indie project, very ambitious. Nice team there working on it. And then, of course, I was also working hard in the last few months on that Turrican re-release from Strictly Limited, which is like this huge collection of all the Turrican games in a big compilation. And one of the special things about that is that we remastered all the musics from the studio recordings that I did in 2013 and put them in there as an option. So when you play the games from Amiga and from the consoles, you can select the studio soundtrack to play in the background, which is a quite cool feature. And then there's some other stuff. I mentioned Patreon. That's actually become a really important project for me. That's like crowdfunding with basically tip money, where fans can tip me on a monthly basis, and I create one song a month there, soon to be two months, that are totally royalty free. So I compose them, and everybody who contributes in this Patreon, they can do with the songs pretty much anything they want, as long as I get a credit for it. That's so they can use it on YouTube. They could, you know, they could use it in a demo project if they wanted to, or convert it to a tracker music or something, whatever they want to do, even commercial works. I really want to grow that Patreon because it's becoming very important to me.
Yeah. We'll make sure to link that in the chat so that everyone here sees it. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. We do have a tight schedule here with the music compos that we're straight into now. But we have one last question for you, and that is, if you could take only one sound chip to a deserted island and live with that for the rest of your life, what sound chip would it be?
Oh, are you guys totally only into C64? Because I would have to say, I mean, I love the SID chip, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be the Amiga sound chip.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, you have more possibilities with sampling. But I totally love the SID chip. I wish they had put it into the Amiga back then. In fact, I wondered if they couldn't have done just two and put a stereo SID in the Amiga. That would have been awesome, additionally to the sampling.
Absolutely. You do get some praise in the chat here for the Paula choice there for the Amiga sound chip. So you do certainly have a lot of friends out there.
Well, thank you guys. I'll peek into the chat room here for a few minutes. Good luck with all the other competitions there, and hi to all the fans.
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely stunning seeing you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you guys.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.